Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, give us a call or a text on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Seattle activists are intent on driving away yet another conference which brings revenue to the city. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
People do not understand why people on the right like Donald Trump. They don't understand why people in the middle like Donald Trump. They don't even understand when people on the left say they'll work with Donald Trump, or there's one or two issues they actually agree with Donald Trump on. People who are suffering from full-on Trump derangement syndrome cannot wrap their heads around why people like Donald Trump. Let's take me for a minute. Am I the biggest fan of President Trump? No. Do I like the majority of his policies? Absolutely. Do I think he gets in his own way with what he says sometimes? Yes. But I also think that sometimes he gets his way because of what he says sometimes. The left cannot understand how anybody would want to work with him. That's why they hate John Fetterman. They hate John Fetterman because John Fetterman says, all right, I don't like your SAVE Act, but I like this voter ID thing. So can we get everything else out of the SAVE Act that has nothing to do with the voter ID? We all vote on the voter ID, and boom, there we go, and I'll get you some Democrat support because it's crazy not to support that. Now, I don't think any of the lefties, especially the hardcore ones, are actually going to go along with him, but they want to primary him now because of it. What's funny to me is the people in media who cannot understand how anybody could like Donald Trump whatsoever. When I came into the office today in the bullpen area, I heard some of my colleagues who work for a different station discussing an Uber ride they had taken yesterday. And apparently while they were taking the Uber ride and listening to them have this conversation, I'm trying not to giggle from my desk because our friends in the newsroom don't exactly share our political ideologies. So one of them says, yeah, and my driver was Iranian. And I've never really spoken to an Iranian person before. And we got to talking about the war, and I said, so what do you think about the war? And I was shocked to hear that the person's in favor of it. And I was shocked to hear that they love Donald Trump. And I was shocked to hear that they support Israel. And I was shocked to hear that they think all of this is great. And then, you won't believe this. This actually happened. This is what they said. You won't believe this. They were telling us what they've done to their families, why their family came here. Do you know the awful atrocities they were suffering under in Iran? As if this was all new information between the people in the newsroom. I was giggling to myself listening to all of this. This is nothing new for anybody who actually reads the news, anybody who actually analyzes the news, anybody who actually follows current events and what's going on. I shouldn't say the news. I should say current events, not the news. So listen to the reaction when the CNN polling crew finds out that the majority of MAGA still likes Donald Trump, and more than that, it's actually increased in the amount of people that like Donald Trump.
Yeah, sometimes you look at the polling data and there are numbers that just jump off the screen at you, and this is one of those. Because just take a look here. MAGA GOP view of Trump. Approve 100%. 100%. If you are a member of MAGA in the GOP, you approve of Donald John Trump. 0% say that they disapprove. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know you can't go higher than 100%. He is the 1972 Miami Dolphins. Now, there are some Republicans who disapprove of Donald John Trump, but they are not members of the Make America Great Again movement. The bottom line is this. If you are a member of MAGA, you approve of Donald Trump.
Okay.
What does that even mean, though? I don't have a MAGA card.
So basically, the way I looked at this poll, because I wanted to know what that meant. What do you mean by MAGA? And how the poll phrased it was, do you identify as a member of the Make America Great Again movement? So, for example, Zach, you and me, right? We like President Trump. Would we identify that way? I would say, I can't speak for you, I would say I identify as a conservative. I don't even identify as a Republican. I would just say I'm a fiscal conservative. That's how I would basically identify.
Real Gen X answer there.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of missed it by that much. But so, yeah, that's what I would just say. I'm a fiscal conservative. If it goes with fiscal conservatism, if it goes with religious values, religious conservative, that kind of stuff, then that's where I'm at for the most part. There's a few little things here and there. You, sir, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say I'm like an America first kind of MAGA guy.
Well, that actually leads me
But MAGA
perfectly.
doesn't, see, I don't know what MAGA means, because I think essentially the way I would interpret that poll is, you know, do you identify with the MAGA movement or whatever? So are you a Trump supporter?
Yeah.
And thus it would be very uncomfortable to say, like, I'm a big MAGA guy, but I don't know about this Trump fella.
So that's what's the funny part, and you led me perfectly into this. Marjorie Taylor Greene had a tweet supporting Joe Kent, where she said Donald Trump is not MAGA. And I said, this is the guy who defines what MAGA is. One of the things about MAGA is there are people who say, we are the Make America Great movement, and if you look at how they actually rate that, Donald Trump wouldn't qualify for how they rate the MAGA movement.
No, but I do think that he has strayed from his what he formerly he was kind of leading the America First sort of agenda, and I think he has strayed from that.
So this is the interesting point. Some people will make that argument. What does America First actually mean? And when you break it down, this is where you get into some tricky areas. So let's take Iran, which is the hot button issue of the day. Well, Ari, it's not America First for our gas prices to go up. You know what? That is a perfectly legitimate argument. Forget the Washington taxes, forget everything. Ari, making my gas prices go up is not what I signed up for. Okay. Why are your gas prices going up? Because we decided to pick a fight with Iran, who's been picking a fight with us for the last 47 years. Iran has said death to America. Iran has killed over 1,000 Americans. And Iran continues to say death to America, continues to say we're going to pursue a nuclear weapon. By taking out Iran, and this is where we can have a discussion, is that America First? Is that America interventionism? What is that? Now, President Trump has been talking about taking out Iran since the 1980s. We have these clips for you. Nothing has changed with President Trump. Found this old clip about it.
When you get the respect of the other countries, then the other countries tend to do a little bit as you do, and you can create the right attitudes. The Iranian situation is a case in point. That they hold our hostages is just absolutely and totally ridiculous. That this country sits back and allows a country such as Iran to hold our hostages, to my way of thinking, is a horror. And I don't think they'd do it with other countries. I honestly don't think they'd do it with other countries.
Obviously, you're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, etc., and brought our boys out.
I absolutely feel that, yes. I don't think there's any question, and there's no question in my mind. I think right now would be an oil-rich nation, and I believe that we should have done it, and I'm very disappointed that we didn't do it, and I don't think anybody would have held us in abeyance. I don't think anybody would have been angry with us, and we had every right to do it at the time. I think we've lost the opportunity.
Do you know when that clip was from? 1980. That was from 1980. So, is that not America First? Is that not MAGA? Well, the problem is also that there's so many things in MAGA that conflict with fiscal conservatism. Tariffs, not fiscally conservative. So that means that conflicts with the Republican Party. And the problem here is holding together a giant coalition of people who hold multiple different views. For example, I'd say Zach and I agree on about 80 to 90% of stuff. We have some differences when it comes to foreign policy. I think that's basically where Zach and I have our differences, and that's fine. But we're both members of this coalition because both of us agree 70%, 80% with President Trump.
Yeah, a coalition that's only defined by one guy gets dicey, and it doesn't set us up well as a party.
Exactly.
Saying you're the Trump party or the MAGA party, you can't make that interchangeable.
Exactly. Now, a lot of people have been saying, Ari, what's all this internal fighting about? The media has been saying, what's all this internal fighting about? And I have a new theory. Just because of Joe Kent and the podcast wars and the Make Podcasts Great Again movement or whatever, the podcast first movement. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. Podcast first. Everything. Joe Kent, yesterday after resigning, He says, I'm going on Tucker Carlson show. Then he says, I'm going to share a stage with Candace Owens. Then he says, I'm going to go on Megyn Kelly's show. And then he says, screw you, Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and everybody else. So, okay, we know what direction he's going in. I have a theory. You notice that most of them, with the exception of Candace Owens, will not actually bash President Trump by name. They'll bash his policies. They'll bash everything he's about. Zach and I just had a whole discussion using President Trump's name about what we agree with him on, what we disagree with him on, and that is more accurate than what these guys are doing. That is more honest than what these guys are doing. So, what you see happening here is they are too cowardly to say they don't like what Trump is doing by name because they're worried about losing access. But they want to impose their will or get their clicks in the podcast first movement.
And you know how hard it is to do a show without a press pass.
Exactly right, Zach. Good zinger there. But where am I going with this? MAGA is not going to be MAGA anymore in 3 years. In fact, I'd say in 2 years. What happens in 2 years, if not sooner? People start running for president. And the question is, who's going to take the reins of the coalition President Trump has built? And right now, everybody's trying to grab their slice of the pie because everybody has realized they're not going to get the whole pie because that's for one guy and one guy only. What we saw after Charlie Kirk's assassination was that all these people were trying to be the next Charlie Kirk. And it showed us how there is not another Charlie Kirk. You may get some other big voice in the Republican Party down the road, but Charlie Kirk was one of a kind. He was one of a kind and irreplaceable. Will there be another voice? We can only hope so. But it is nobody who's around right now because many have tried and nobody has succeeded. Everybody is trying to get their own little slice of the pie, be it the bots online, be it the isolationist wing, be it the Make America Healthy Again wing, whatever it is, because so many of these
my
things...
least favorite wing.
So many of these things are conflicting ideologies that the only one who's making them all work together is President Trump, be it because people want access, be it because people like him, be it because people go, I don't like him, but I want to work with him and I get what I want when I work with him, whatever the case may be. That is what is holding this coalition together. And what we saw yesterday with Joe Kent resigning and Joe Kent going off, and then he says, Israel caused this, or I didn't want to be part of the Iran war. What's funny is Joe Kent continues to disagree with Joe Kent.
Most Americans aren't aware of it. Our troops in Iraq and Syria have been attacked 150 plus times by Iranian proxies. And when we say Iranian proxies, we got to be clear on what that is. That's the Iraqi government, and the Iraqi government's controlled by Iran.
I love the El Donaldo Trumpo account because they made that little video there with the little music at the end there about that. Joe Kent disagrees with Joe Kent. But what's he trying to do? He's trying to be part of the podcast first movement right now, not the America first movement. J.D. Vance. And say what you will about J.D. Vance. I happen to like most of what J.D. Vance says. Gave the perfect response to what happened with Joe Kent while the vice president was at a rally today.
3 weeks ago. Now, you ask about Joe Kent. Now, I know Joe Kent a little bit. I like Joe Kent. You heard the President of the United States say yesterday that he likes Joe Kent, too. But it's one thing to have a disagreement of opinion. I know the President very well. He welcomes differences of opinion. He likes it when people express their views about what should happen. He listens to everybody. It's one of the great things I like about him is that whether you're the gardener at Mar-a-Lago or whether you're the Secretary of the State, the president cares about what you think about an issue. He recognizes that everybody has smarts and everybody has wisdom. That said, whatever your view is, when the president of the United States makes a decision, it's your job to help make that decision as effective and successful as possible. And so the president said this yesterday, if you are on the team and you can't help implement the decisions of his administration, he has the right to make those decisions, then it's a good thing for you to resign. And I think that's exactly right. It's fine to disagree, But once the president makes a decision, it's up to everybody who serves in his administration to make it as successful as possible. That's how I do my job, and I think that's how everybody in the administration should do their job, too.
Perfectly said. But I also think that's how most people do their jobs at work, too. In a normal company, real companies, what happens is the boss listens to what people have to say and says, well, somebody here is going to be unhappy, but this is the direction we're going in. And you either like the decision or you hate the decision. But especially when you're talking something like this, let's go back a year. Do you remember the first successful strikes against terrorists where you had that signal chat that got revealed? People were all working together, but you could tell that J.D. Vance was a little more isolationist, and you could tell that Pete Hegseth wanted to go blow things up, and Joe Kent was on that too. Joe Kent was on there also. You could see they all had their little piece of the pie in the area, but they were all working together for the president's agenda, for the administration's agenda. Joe Kent wants to go quit. He has every right to go quit. Every single right to do so. Until he actually shows me any evidence of anything he says is true, I'm going to believe old Joe Kent in what he said. Because right now, everything he wrote in that letter on government letterhead, which you don't normally do, by the way, I can disprove all of it, and we did it in yesterday's show. What's fascinating to watch the reaction online. When I posted yesterday's segment where I discussed Joe Kent, you look at the comments. The people I know are real people are like, I'm really disappointed in Joe. Or, I never really liked Joe and I saw this coming. Everybody who's the bot are the ones who are taking the Joe Kent crazy side if they're not on the complete other side of the political spectrum. But what's funny was watching CNN, MSNBC, everybody else go, Joe Kent, he's an American hero. We have to listen to what he says. Whereas this same time last year, he's a white supremacist, he's a Proud Boy, he's an election denier. Now all of a sudden, because the narratives line up, they're like, we like this guy. It seems like this isn't going to go away anytime soon. And my guess is what you're going to hear next is a big announcement. Declassified, hosted by Joe Kent, part of the Podcast First Network. When you sign up to work in the administration, you have to recognize that you don't always get what you want. You know the biggest problem with the Biden administration? Everybody who signed up to be in that administration got whatever they wanted. And it reminded me of the movie Bruce Almighty with Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey doesn't want to deal with everybody's prayers that are coming in when he gets to be God. So he makes up a computer account, Yahweh, instead of Yahoo, which was kind of funny. And all the prayers come in, and Jim Carrey sets up yes to all. And everybody gets what they want. But when everybody gets what they want, everybody won the lottery. And then the lottery ran out of money, so everybody rioted against the lottery, and the whole world goes to hell because, as Mick Jagger says, you can't always get what you want. And by saying yes to everybody, you get the mess that the Biden administration does. Everybody said, this guy is a puppet. We're going to use him to get what we want. And look what happened. You had conflicting ideologies intersecting with each other, bouncing off each other, and that's why that administration completely fell apart.
I couldn't get no satisfaction.
Exactly. But you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need, which is what happens in this administration. You agree with me? You disagree with me? Give me a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. What I've come to realize is no matter how hard they try, they're never going to get what they need. The Seattle activists are at it again, trying to chase out yet another conference from Seattle. Soon, they're going to be just as unemployed as the tech workers. We'll tell you what's going on up next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. I saw the activist class was all up in arms in Seattle today, so it must be a day that ends in Y. What are they mad about today? I'm just going to read their press release. Ready for this? Mass protest planned against weapons conference to oppose wars for profit at the Seattle Convention Center arches on Pike. Hundreds of companies that make up the military supply chain will be gathering at the Seattle Convention Center March 18th through 19th for the Aerospace and Defense Supplier Summit. So you're going to go protest Boeing? Oh, that's something new.
I like when they say mass protest planned. That ball's not really in your court.
I'll also say this. The last time they did a mass protest, I didn't talk about this on air because I was trying a little experiment. If we don't mention a protest, does it still make a sound?
No one's ever advertised, we're hosting an intimate protest.
Yes.
It will be a couple of us, it will be lackluster and achieve very little.
5 of our closest personal friends, which is actually what happened on Friday. On Friday, they planned this big anti-Israel, pro-Hamas, anti-ICE, you name the cause, no kings, you name it. It was snowing that day. So they put up a video. The activists put up a video of their protest. It literally was, I think, the same 10 people. Just it shows them from the front. It shows them from the back. It shows them from the side. Trying to make it look like there's more people there. I think there were 10.
Kind of a Bennett 360.
There you go. So just keep going around like that. Exactly right. So hundreds of companies that make up the military supply chain will be gathering at the Seattle Convention Center. Concerned community organizations will be hosting a mass protest. Hang on a second. You're doing this at 12? So this happened already. Zach, you see any video of this at all?
No.
Anything? No. Okay. Well, you haven't seen anything about it, which means did it even actually happen, or was it just a small, intimate gathering of friends?
I'll check the Twitter, but
see if you've seen anything. But I will remind you that last year, when Microsoft had its big conference here, and the activists decided to target it, they said, we're out of here. Microsoft said, no more of this, we are leaving. Now, mind you, there were other things going on at the time. There was a tent in front of the conference center that everybody walked by, everybody ridiculed, and the city would not get rid of in an election year. Bruce Harrell couldn't clear one tent, not one. So Microsoft finally said, we are out of here. Starbucks has said we are out of here. How many other conferences do you want to chase out of town? Activists, I got some news for you. If there's no more conferences, what are you going to protest? Zach's got some video.
maybe a baker's dozen.
Yeah, I think that's about
Kshama
right.
Sawant appears to be visible, though.
Is she? Oh, she's still trying to get some people to notice that she's running for Congress and nobody else seems to care about it? Thank you, Zach. So great. 13 whole people. Wow. You guys did it. You stopped all the wars. You stopped the airplanes from flying. Well done. If you continue doing this, you chase everybody out. Now, mind you, this is the same group that advocates to keep people on the streets, and they're really, really mad at Katie Wilson because she's sweeping everybody off the streets. Do you know what got swept yesterday? The big homeless encampment right outside Seattle Center on that empty lot, because it's made national headlines, because anytime somebody comes to Seattle for tourist reasons or conferences or anything else, you've got this sucker right there. And what's the most common thing I see? You're going to have the World Cup with this year? So I assume they're just a few blocks away. Zach, I'm sure any day now we're going to see more tents up our block because we're right. You know that's where. Oh, they're going to be in our parking lot like before. We get to see monks or we get to see homeless people in our parking lot. That's normally what we get.
I prefer the former.
Yeah, the monks, seeing the monks. Yes, we're right next to a monastery. It's fun to see that. But
you can't offend them. They don't listen to the radio. I don't do they? I don't know.
I don't know. That guy's walking out there all the time.
If you're a monk, give us a text.
Let us know you're listening. 206-421-5757. Speaking of our unsheltered neighbors, we told you yesterday the story about what happened at the Chihuly glass exhibit, but now we've got more details about what happened. I got the police report last night from the King County prosecutors, asked them nicely, gave it to me before anybody else. Here's what happened. A 40-year-old man is in custody after allegedly trying to stab museum staff with shards of Chihuly glass. So we were sort of thinking that's what happened yesterday. We didn't know all the details. For those of you who don't know, the Chihuly Glass Museum is right there in Seattle Center, right next to the Space Needle. According to police, just after 11 p.m. at the Chihuly Garden and Glass, officers were dispatched following reports of a man actively smashing the museum's iconic glass plant sculptures. When officers arrived, they were met by museum security and a scene of widespread damage. Large, colorful shards of broken glass littered walkways and surrounding areas. Security personnel quickly identified the suspect, who was still on site. Security guards initially encountered the suspect while patrolling the museum grounds. Police say the man had already destroyed multiple glass displays, escalated the situation by throwing shards at a guard while attempting to stab him multiple times. The guard was able to escape without injury and retreat to a safe area while awaiting police.
I'm sure this was chaotic and not as kind of action-packed as it sounds, but it definitely has John Wick kind of vibes to it. Grab some broken glass.
So what's funny is actually there's video. There is video of this, okay? And I spoke to somebody who's seen it. I haven't seen it yet. I put in a request for it. I'm waiting to see it. And they go, yeah, it's just like what we're describing, actually. It's more John Wick action-packed than you would realize.
Well, then if no one got hurt, I want to see this.
Check it out. See, Zach's used to be saying, hey, come here, watch this. And somebody dies on screen that I'm showing all the time. I've tried to be better about that. I don't call you over for the snuff.
Ari will say, like, don't worry, no one got hurt. And it's like, well, he's dead. Yeah, but it was quick and painless. No one got hurt.
Yeah,
he's just
not
dead.
hurt. He didn't feel any pain. He's super dead when he got decapitated or whatever. So this guy's name is Alexander Taylor Weiss of Olympia, Washington.
You can't trust a guy with 3 names.
You really can't. Serial killers, assassins, they always have the 3 names. Each piece that was damaged was valued at approximately $20,000 a pop. So he did $240,000 worth of damage to the Chihuly garden. Now, the reason I bring this up again is not just because we got the police report, but also because we went to a movie last night. At 4:45 today, you get to hear me and Zach review the Hail Mary movie starring Ryan Gosling. But last night, something weird happened. For those of you who know the setup of Seattle Center, the Pacific Science Center is there, and they have 2 IMAX studios. One's a small one where normally you go see movies about volcanoes, and one's the big one where normally you go see Star Wars or whatever it is when it's being released. Well, the big one, the nice one, the pretty one, has now been sold to Seattle Center / Space Needle people. The people who run that.
Oh, so they ended
thing.
up buying it?
They're buying the thing.
Good. That'll make a nice shelter.
Right. So now you've got that problem. They've opened up the Science Center, so now you can walk in where all the dinosaurs
are. Which is super cool. Well,
the big metal dinosaurs.
Don't get me started on
that. They got
that.
rid of the other dinosaurs.
I lost that auction.
Yeah. The robo dinosaurs are gone. But now you've got 2 IMAXs within steps of each other. One's part of the Science Center. But then I saw this article. Seattle wants to use taxpayer dollars to fix up the Science Center. And I say, why should we pay for this? Now, I know Mike and Kevin would get mad at me when I would bring up Cinerama, but Seattle invested over $1 million in Cinerama just to save the chocolate-covered popcorn and the screen that's there. And now the thing's going bust. The Seattle International Film Festival laid off a whole bunch of people because guess what? People don't want to go to downtown Seattle to see a movie. They don't want to go there. They're not going to the movies on a good day, let alone come down here, have to pay for parking, maybe get stabbed by some Chihuly glass while you're down here.
And this one makes me sad because I love the Science Center. That was, honestly, until I got a job here at the station, that was the only reason I got to come to Seattle as a kid.
Yeah.
Until I started going to crusty punk shows. But as a kid, like, Seattle Center was it. We had a membership, would come up all the time, but it was a different operation. They ran those traveling exhibits.
Sure.
Everything was top-notch and well-kept.
You're about the same age as my kids, a little bit older, but I would bring my kids for the same things I'm sure your parents brought you to.
Yeah, and then so when I finally got to work up here, I was like, oh, man, I gotta get like a membership and we'll go all the time and there'll be all this fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then you look online and you're like, oh, well, they don't really do that anymore.
No, let's see what I saw here. King Tut, the Star Wars Science
Lucy
exhibit.
was a huge deal. And this stuff was a huge deal.
Oh, yeah, the Harry Potter thing, the Battlestar Galactica. There was all this amazing stuff. They don't do that anymore. So now we have to bail out a museum that had a good product, that hasn't offered a good product. Why do we have to pay for that? Also, I noticed you got all these plaques everywhere for everybody else who pays for it. People want to save the Science Center, then go save the Science Center.
And run it like a business. I don't know for sure, but from what I've seen, I think it's very personnel heavy.
Yep.
I think they pay quite a lot.
Did you see how many security guards were there last night for that screening?
Well, not even security, just they had a whole bunch of staff members.
A whole bunch of people
just
there
for us, for a small theater to watch a movie.
Which was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But they're going to spend our taxpayer dollars on fixing up the Science Center? Please. No. You can't even keep the area safe. Instead, they're putting in hygiene stations for the homeless. How many people do you think want to bring their kids to the Seattle Center when you bring in the hygiene stations for the homeless? Absolutely insane. Insane.
And if you're going to bail them out, make it like free or $5
Whatever
or make it like
it
a
is,
park, but they
something
won't.
Right. No, it was one of the most expensive memberships in the country, and you didn't even get that much with it. It wasn't part of the networks you wanted to be
It was part of the networks.
Not the one I wanted. I wanted a different network. There was you get the science centers, right? There's two. There's one that's the expanded network, which gets like the Intrepid and stuff. That one didn't get that stuff. Anywho, when we come back, my friends, speaking of cool things to see like airplanes, we've got a really amazing story during a congressional hearing today, which really shows that people in D.C. can still have heart. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I know all anybody's talking about today during the confirmation hearings for Markwayne Mullet is Mullen. I said Mullet. Mullen is that they're talking about this fight between him and Rand Paul. That's drama. That's nonsensical drama. They don't like each other. Fine. I don't think that's interesting. I mean, personally, we know that Rand Paul basically votes against anything these days, so whatever. They've got personal beef, fine. There's this thing I've said about President Trump many, many times is that when you can talk to him one-on-one, it's a different guy than what you see everywhere else. It really is a very different guy, and everybody will say this. You feel like the center of his world. And he's known for these little stories, paying off people's mortgages, lending out planes to fly organs to people. You name it. He's done that kind of stuff. It was urban legend, and it's all confirmed in New York. And then when he's on stage, sometimes somebody will ask him about it. He'll tell you the full story. Markwayne Mullen had one of these stories today. I thought it was a really special moment when normally you don't get these in Congress. It's a little long.
So my son was a really world-class athlete, and January 17th of 2020, which, mind you, was an election year, he had a really serious brain injury. Woke up 26 hours later, and he's a different kid. We almost lost him. For 26 hours, he had an extremely low pulse. There was a time they thought that they lost his pulse altogether. And when he woke up, he was just different. I mean, here you had a world-class athlete that wrestled all over the world since he was 12 years old, and he couldn't touch his nose. He couldn't walk without shuffling his feet. He had short-term memory loss. He couldn't control his muscles. Couldn't add 5+3. He was in high school at that time. Had to learn how to read, walk, everything. And the president found out about it, and he gave me a call immediately. And one thing that the president joked about was, like, he said, let me get this straight. He doesn't know who you and Christy are, but he knew who I was, because the only question you got right is who the president was. And he said, Trump, with his cocky grin on his face. And but the president didn't understand the severity of it, but he heard it in my voice, and immediately he went to work. I told him we had to get to Bakersfield, California, to the Center for Neural Skills, which is one of the best neural rehabilitation places in the world. And the president offered us in his plane, his personal plane. This is the president of the United States. And I said, sir, we can't fly. We got to drive. We get there, and he called almost every day for 2 weeks checking on Jim. And then he says, I'm going to come see him. And now this is the middle of the election. This is Bakersfield, California. Really not an area he's got to go campaign. And he took the time to come up there and see Jim. And the center told us that the short-term memory loss something would trigger it. Some big event would eventually trigger where he'd start retaining stuff. Until then, he was still having issues. And the president arrived, and of course there was cameras and everybody around, and of course none of the media ever talked about it, which was funny because the president called him on stage and talked to him. And then we went to the back, and the president didn't talk to me. He didn't know I was he didn't even care if I was in the room. Here's a guy that's been over, and his tie is about as long as my son, because my son, it stunted his growth, and so he's 5'3" the rest of his life. And his team came to him twice and said, sir, we got to go. We got to go. On the third time they came over to him, he looked at him and he says, hey, I guarantee you that plane won't leave without me. And for the next 15 minutes, he did nothing but love on my son. That one incident jogged his memory. And from then on, he started retaining things. And Jim's attitude went from this, we're going to get through it, to this, I'm going to get through it. And every week, if not most days, the president would call and ask how he could help. Ask how's his buddy doing? How's Jim doing? He didn't do it for publicity. He didn't do it for any show. He was running in one of the toughest elections he had been in, and the guy was still that concerned about my son. When we got released for a little bit, we had to go back. When we got released a little bit, the president said, come to Mar-a-Lago and see me. We go down there, and it's amazing. And when we're leaving, dang it, I hate getting emotional. See, if I talk about my kids, I get emotional. Other than that, you can't make me cry. But my kids can make me emotional.
That's actually a good thing.
Yeah. So anyways, he grabbed my son, and he said, do you know why I love your dad? Do you know why I love your dad? Chrissy tells the story better than I do. And he goes, no, sir. He goes, because he loves you. Because of you. Because of you. Man, he didn't do it for any other reason. I mean, here's the president of the United States, and he did it just because he cared. And so when you want to say why he's a friend, yeah, we were acquaintances before that. We've been friends ever since.
The American people need to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's the kind of stuff you hear from people who meet him one-on-one. I wish that he was that guy all the time. The one I like second best is the one you see at State of the Union. That's the other Trump who's my other favorite Trump. The one you see in the Oval Office now, that's the daytime normal Trump. But the one that Mark Wayne Mullen was just talking about, the one that I spoke to on the phone, the one that other people have met, that's the Trump I wish we saw all the time. Really do. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our frenemy, Bennett the Protester. Bennett, are you down at the Seattle Convention Center today? Were you down there today?
Oh, you got me. What happened? Did Zach narc on me or something?
No. I'm literally just asking because if there's a protest, Bennett's going to be there.
Yeah, what did Zach, or was it Mike, who said something about, it's like a Bennett 360 when we see all the shots of the same 10 people from every different angle. And it's like, okay. It's like saying Candyman in front of a mirror. Now I have to call. I hadn't heard from young Zach since he went to the Super Bowl. Oh, and he got to see the cars from F1 me and my friends call it F1 the movie, not F1
Okay,
colon the movie.
Bennett,
You know why?
Bennett,
You know why?
Bennett,
Ari?
my show, not your show. Move on, man. Move on. What's your point today?
Because we're decolonizers. Oh.
Okay, Bennett, I'm like 2 seconds away from hitting the button today, man. What's your point?
Okay, so you've been having a bunch of posts about the Iran the Iran protesters supporting the invasion, and you saw pictures from all the crowds of the people gathering on the I-90 bridge and stuff. And I hear a lot of this from conservatives, like, oh, look, the Iranians in America, they support the invasion, and I think it's useful at that point to point out there's no particular reason to think that the affected group, especially if they're expats out of the country, is necessarily right. You're talking about people that, the regime that they hate, it well deserves to be hated, but these are people that if they got out of the country, and especially if they got out with all their friends and family with them, they may have a very biased opinion about going to war in the country. They most certainly hate the dictator who is still there.
So hang on a second. I want to make sure I got this right. Rather than listen to people who are from Iran about what they experienced in Iran under the regime, we should listen to the protesters who never experienced anything they experienced?
Well, I'm saying they're not necessarily right about weighing the desire for getting justice against the despot there.
Hang on a second, Bennett, because clearly you've missed a few episodes this week where I literally said when I go to some of these protests, I get a little wary because sometimes they're chanting to bring back the Shah. Long live the king. So one of the issues we're having right now, and we're actually going to discuss this in the 5 o'clock hour, is what's next for Iran. Now, if you study the battle plans that are going on right now and what they're hitting, all the stuff that comes out of the administration, all the stuff that gets released by Israel, they are now hitting the police stations because they realize that the people cannot rise up while the Ayatollah's police are still doing what they do. It's not like our police. It's the religious police. It's the Ayatollah police that are over there. So they're bombing those locations because they want the people to do it themselves, but they've been persecuted for half a century, and they don't know how to do it themselves. That's the problem of what's going on right now is we need that revolution to happen, but it doesn't seem like it's happening because we really don't want to go in and be in charge of the country ourselves. Bennett, appreciate the call. You stay safe out there. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, a trans woman dressed as a blues brother is arrested after a standoff for murder of a real estate tycoon. I can't make that up. I will tell you this insane story when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. That music means it's time for your chance to win two tickets to see Aaron Lewis and the Stateliners at the Muckleshoot Event Center on March 24th. All you have to do is enter the word I give you, text it on over to the number I give you, and you will be automatically entered for your chance to win these two tickets. Today's word is stain, as in there's a stain on my shirt. I can't say the other word because then people are going to text in the other word. That's the problem.
Yeah, don't put the D on it.
Don't do that. Stain, as in stain on my shirt, stain on my clothing. S-T-A-I-N. There's no E in there. Text that on over to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And if you are a proud winner today, you are going to get two tickets to see Aaron Lewis and the Stateliners at the Muckleshoot Event Center on March 24th. Okay, this is the craziest headline of the day. Absolutely craziest one. Trans woman dressed as Blues Brother arrested after a 7-hour standoff for murder of real estate tycoon in California.
I thought we weren't doing movie reviews for another hour.
This is the sequel nobody wanted. I will tell you that. This is the third Blues Brothers
Sequel to
movie.
Transformers?
Oh, no! Bad, Zach, but funny. Here we go. According to the Post Millennial, a standoff ensued at a Southern California home on Saturday between authorities and a trans-identified suspect after a retired property developer was found dead inside. Police took Eleanor Bulu, 39, who was described as being transgender and wearing an outfit similar to those worn in the Blues Brothers, into custody after a 7-hour standoff. Something tells me they weren't raising money for an orphanage. That's just a guess. But I guess they are being true to the character by, at the end of the movie, the entire police department is surrounding you and you get arrested. Sorry, 40-year-old spoiler. According to the Daily Mail, Hermosa Beach police arrived at the home at 12:37 p.m. on Saturday to conduct a welfare check after the upstairs neighbor of 92-year-old Demetrius Dokoulis reported smelling a foul odor from the real estate developer's unit and seeing a suspicious person entering. Neighbors said they regularly saw the man sitting on his porch that overlooks Manhattan Beach, but had not seen him for a week, with his porch blind staying closed. They report seeing a person wearing a suit and a fedora coming in and going from the residence. Since his wife Freda died at the age of 75 in 2012, Dokoulis had lived alone. Police said, with the assistance of the landlord and the realtor, they granted us access to go inside, and they located somebody that was inside that did not match the description of the resident. When they entered the unit, officers say they saw a person run into the bedroom and lock the door. Wait, we've got this all wrong. Suit, fedora, ran into a bedroom. That's Michael Jackson. That's what this isn't the Blues Brothers. That's Michael Jackson. And they came into the bedroom was a sound of. Okay, that person made some type of statement that she was armed.
And weren't okay.
Definitely not after this. That she was armed, this is their words, not mine, and barricaded herself inside the residence. In the hours that followed, police attempted to negotiate with Bulu over the phone and called in the Hermosa Beach Hawthorne SWAT team. Nearby homes were evacuated. In the evening, an officer warned Bulu that authorities would force entry. Eleanor, come out with your hands up. This has been going on long enough. Remember that this is a man who's pretending to be a woman, who's pretending to be a Blues Brother or Michael Jackson, depending on which one you will have. At 7:45 p.m., Bolo surrendered to authorities, walking out of the home with hands in the air. Bolo was seen in footage from Easy Reader News wearing a black suit, white shirt, sunglasses, and a fedora similar to those seen in the 1980 hit movie The Blues Brothers.
I think it's a Rancid song.
Here's my question. I looked at the video.
Do they have a Cadillac?
No Cadillac.
The boys
and
a time bomb.
No police car with a giant megaphone on top of it. None of that. I have questions. Is it because of their build you said it was Blues Brothers? Because maybe it's just a bigger Michael Jackson. There's different ways you can go with this. When authorities searched the unit, they found Dokoulis' decomposing body. The medical examiner said the body had signs of trauma. Bolo was booked into the Los Angeles County Men's Central Jail on suspicion of murder. Bolo's bond has been set at $2 million. They said that Bolo had been booked under the suspect's legal name of Robert Philip Simmons. So where does this Bolo business come from? However, as of Tuesday afternoon, the name appears to have been updated to Eleanor Bolo because the murderer has to have the right name on the paperwork. Bolo's sex is listed as male in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's directory because they're like, we're not playing your little games and we're not putting you in the female jail. You're a dude. This is insane that we still play these games. So if, God forbid, I get arrested one day, I could say, my name is Jedi Master Hoffman. Zach, that's how you'll know it's actually me. I'll say Jedi Master and you go, oh, Ari's in jail again. Lots more to discuss.
Again?
Well, you didn't hear about my prom night. When we come back, the price of gas here in Washington is skyrocketing, but who's really to blame for it? We'll tell you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, California spent over $110 million on a bridge for animals. I don't even know how they know how to cross the thing or where to go. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is time for your chance to win $2,000 of cold, hard cash to pay your bills. That's right, my friends. Things are so expensive around here. We are going to make sure to help you out a little bit. You're going to get your chance to win $2,000 in cash. Now, all you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you for your chance to win. Do not text me your phone number. Do not text me your email address. Do not text me, Ari, you are the best looking radio host in the entire country. Don't text me any of that. I mean, you can text it afterwards. But for now, I just want you to text the word itself. And today's word is win. As in, all I do is win. W-I-N. Text that to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for your chance to pay your bills by winning fantabulous prizes.
I was stuck on the Blues Brothers earlier. I missed my first cue.
All right. I'm like, where's the music, man? Anyway, text the word win to 206-421-5757.
It was all Belushi.
That's what it is. By the way, Belushi's better than Beyonce. Well, okay, I know some people are going to get mad at me if I say that one. All right.
That is a hot take.
Well, one's dead and one's not. All right, moving on here. Gas prices are out of control. And when people talk about what's happening in the Middle East, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, I want Iran to be free, but I don't want to pay for it at the pump. I don't want it to hit me. I understand that. I totally do. Now, what's fascinating to me is it's like a switch went on today. Finally, a switch today where most of the mainstream media is covering it correctly. Have gas prices spiked because of what's going on in the Middle East? 1,000%. No, they haven't spiked 1,000%. 1,000% they're right. But
only pennies.
Only pennies, just pennies. But they are now finally mentioning the Climate Commitment Act, which it's been a while. I actually called out some of our friends in the newsroom today talking about gas prices. They're like, oh my God, they're so high because of the war. I said, can you tell me why? In Idaho, it's $3.33, and here it's $5.15 because of those pennies that Jay Inslee was talking about. Yes, what's going on with gas prices is affecting everybody, but why are we getting affected worse? So, if you break down the prices themselves, we've had this massive increase for the last 2 weeks because of this. So what exactly is going on? You've got the blockage, which is affecting roughly 20 million barrels of oil per day because very little is moving through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, let's be clear. Iran is not blocking the strait, but every ship is afraid to go through there because all it takes is one terrorist with a shoulder-mounted missile launcher, maybe even less than that, and now you've got a problem. What if they hit
Especially when you're hauling liquid.
Yeah, especially when you're hauling liquid that is, I don't know, combustible. Maybe that might be a bit of a problem, so they don't want to go through the strait, and that's the problem. Now, this shouldn't be affecting our gas prices as much. As I said, I don't think President Trump has handled this as well as he could. I think what you do is you got two carrier groups there, right? Send one of them in to clear out the strait. Should be that easy. Should be that simple. I know he's asking the allies to help right now, too, because we're busy fighting a war. But since they don't want to do it, we should go step up. We should go get in there. Now, a lot of people are saying, Ari, why didn't he do this beforehand? Because then the Iranians wouldn't have been surprised that we were coming because too many of them leaked too many things to the Iranians. But he should have had the carrier group over there somewhere. They should be the ones clearing out the strait if nobody else is going to be clearing out the strait. Additionally, there should be a press conference. And I've been saying this since the first day of the war. There should be a press conference. You get together the heads of all the big oil companies, and you say, you want leases? You got them. We're going to open up all the drilling here. There's not going to be a supply shortage. You need to get it from us. May take you a little bit longer, but there's no shortage here at home.
Almost like it was a campaign promise.
Exactly right. This is the easy way to solve this. Should be a really easy way to solve this. Because here's the problem. Real people are being affected. I got this press release today. This is from Save Family Farming. This is from Jason Vanderkooi, a family dairy farmer and a Save Family Farming vice president. The conflict in Iran is affecting farmers here in Washington as fuel and fertilizer prices spike. As farms are already grappling with the state's worsening farming profitability crisis, these additional costs are driving them even closer to the brink of closure. Let's stop right there before we get to anything else. Why are they not profitable here? Why are Washington farmers at the lowest end of profitability in the U.S.? I thought it's all about our farmers, our farmers, our farmers. We're going to help them. We're going to help them. What do you farm with, guys? You farm with machinery. What does machinery run on? Oh, right, gasoline and oil. If those prices go up, your prices go up, and there's only so much people are willing to pay for the price of a potato or apple or anything else like that. So now you have a serious problem. And what's fascinating to me is how many people will ignore what's going on with the Climate Commitment Act. The Climate Commitment Act is spiking our gas prices and taxes by bringing it closer to $1.30 a gallon. On top of that, the other thing which nobody is discussing around here is the fact that you have 2 oil refineries shutting down in California. Why are they shutting down in California? Because of onerous regulations. And because of those regulations, they ain't coming back, by the way. So now California has to import its gas. And now we're competing with California for the gasoline also. Yes, we have refineries here. Yes, we get oil here. But this puts another drain on the system. And what I don't see is the nuanced discussion about what's happening. I see the mainstream media finally caring about gas prices. Not one of them said a word when the Climate Commitment Act passed. Not one. Not one of them said a word when gas prices went up. You know what the headlines always were? The headlines were always, our gas is so high. Doesn't that suck? Are we higher than California? Are we lower than California? Are we higher than Hawaii? That was the article. We went through article after article after article from the Seattle Times where they refused to even do the word Climate Commitment Act. I would make that little ding on air from my computer all the time where I would do the Control F function and just start typing in Climate Commitment Act. Never pop up ever, which means they're only telling you half of the story. And this is beyond frustrating. If you're trying to start a business here, especially one that runs on gasoline, why would you start it here in Washington? Just for fun, I pulled out my old formulas for my event rental company. And a huge part of that was gas prices. I would have had to charge double what I used to charge in order to haul a bounce house to somebody's house right now at these prices. You think somebody's going to book it for that amount of money? Of course not. They're not going to do it. And this is why so many companies are leaving. That, the onerous regulations, the high cost of operating, the high taxes. I don't know if you guys saw this on social media. There's a guy named Mark Barros. He's in the tech world. And he posted this whole thing on X about why he's leaving. He said it's not even about the millionaire tax, which we all know is an income tax. He said, quote, I'm not even a millionaire affected by this tax. But when you add up all the costs to run a business in Washington, we can't afford it. You can build a remote team and reopen in Wyoming, removing all of these costs. He did not say when he moved out of state. However, he did say that a lot of the stuff is there and it's not coming back because this is the ongoing problem a lot of people are having. I'm going to read for you his letter because this affects every single business. Washington is incredibly beautiful. And the people are great. Unfortunately, the numbers don't lie. Unless you run a super high margin software business, it's just too expensive. And then he lists off the problems. Gas taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, capital gains taxes, estate taxes, housing prices, fuel costs, food costs, and all the investors are leaving.
Another one.
Exactly. why would you want to start a business here? Now, where does this all end? It ends with what New York's dealing with right now. New York Governor Kathy Hochul is now begging businesses to come back to New York because they all left. Give a listen.
When you get the respect of the other countries, then the other countries tend to do a little bit as you do, and you can create the right attitudes. The Iranian situation is a case in point. That they hold our hostages is just absolutely...
Oh, wait a second. That's Donald Trump. Hang on one second here. We'll find the Kathy Hochul clip for you in a second. But Kathy Hochul, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, is literally saying she wants the companies to come back and pay the taxes. Why? Because right now, they don't have enough people paying the taxes. And the thing you have to realize is that when a company is in your city, that company will pay normal taxes and their employees pay taxes. But if that company's not there, you're going to continue having these problems. And that's something that they just don't realize. You can only tax them so much before they take off and completely go. Why would anybody stay here anymore? People are just going to say, I am out of here. Now, Amanda McKinney, who is running for the U.S. House of Representatives in Washington's 4th Congressional District, we like her a lot. She wrote this op-ed for the Center Square. When the Washington legislature passed the state's new millionaires tax, Governor Bob Ferguson called it historic. Quote, it's not too often in this line of work when you have a vote that's truly historic, and by any definition, that's what this was. He's right about one thing. It's historic. But it's historic for all the wrong reasons. Washington has operated under a clear constitutional principle meant to protect taxpayers from exactly this kind of policy shift. Article 7, Section 1 of the Washington State Constitution requires tax uniformity. So that way, you have to define property broadly to include income. For decades, courts have upheld that interpretation, which is why Washington has consistently rejected a graduated income tax unless the Constitution itself is amended. Timeout. You should be asking yourself why the Democrats were so hot on implementing this tax without a vote of the people. Why they wouldn't just do it as a constitutional amendment, because they know as a constitutional amendment, they're never going to have people support for it. Look at the outrage right now. How many more businesses are leaving every single day? We really don't want to end up like New York. Here's Governor Kathy Hochul, who's going to explain what happens when you tax people too much.
And being conscious of the facts that I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state. Right? Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who stepped up. Okay. Cut me the checks. I mean, just if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded. So I philosophically don't have a problem. It is like I have to look at the fact that we are in competition with other states who have less of a tax burden on their corporations and their individuals. And I would say remote work changed everything. There were people who could only work in an office in Manhattan or work in New York State, and they were captives to our state. They were going to stay. We saw that that's not the case. I mean, Wall Street businesses looking at Texas, they're not going there because they have a nicer governor. I know that for sure. But they're going there because of the tax rate. We have to be smart about this. But we can fund what we want to fund with what we already are taking in.
Do you know why Florida has more money than it could ever spend? It can spend it on whatever it wants. Because all these businesses move there. And you don't have to rip their eyes out and take every dime they have left just because they're in your state. Also, everybody needs to stop blaming remote work. Everybody ordered their employees back to work, except for maybe King County. So enough of this nonsense. Absolutely enough of it. I've really had it. Where you say, oh, you know what? It's remote work. It's COVID. It's been 6 years. 6 years. You want to know how long it's been? You know what I did yesterday? Yesterday, Fox News was here in Seattle, and they called little old me. Why? They wanted a tour of the ancient ruins of the autonomous zone. So I decided to take them around Capitol Hill to show them this is where the warlord was, this is where people got shot, this is where people died, this is where everything was in the autonomous zone. It's been so long they're doing a retrospective. And you know what the retrospective is on? Have things gotten better since then? Has the city learned its lesson or not? And guess what? They learned their lesson for about half a second. What was that election in 2021 and 2022? We got a more moderate city council. Bruce Harrell was seen as the more moderate approach. And then immediately we snap right back to communism, snap right back to socialism. And now you're shocked that businesses are leaving? I am so mad at the Downtown Seattle Association. The Downtown Seattle Association has played footsie with the very people who create bad business environments for the guys who are basically the Chamber of Commerce for downtown Seattle. So they invite Katie Wilson to come speak at their event. And by the way, she ducked out early because she didn't want to face questions from anybody. So the very woman who says she's going to penalize all the buildings and all the businesses in town by taxing them more, come have some dinner, have some food, have a speech or two. Give me a break. You guys have been playing footsie with these people for so long. I know everybody's all excited because behind John Scholes, who's head of the Downtown Seattle Association, he put up a giant graphic of how bad things are. 32% vacancy rate of offices. 58% decline in the value of buildings, an additional $1 billion in taxes. The person who's responsible for it is sitting in the front row. The policy she supported is right there. What, you think you're going to change her because you gave her some prime rib? I don't think anything's going to change because of it. So I'll tell you something, guys. Are gas prices going up? Yes. Are we feeling it more here? Yes, but a lot of the reason we're feeling it more here is because of the bad policies here in Washington, and it's affecting your wallet. But meanwhile, the media is trying to change it as everything's because of Iran, ignoring the fact that the increase from the war in Iran is 13 cents. 13 cents. $1.30 of what you're paying at the pump right now is because of the bad policies here in Washington. And how is that affecting businesses? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Robert here in Kent sent me a text. Ari, you are the best radio host in the U.S. as well as the best looking one. Thank you, Robert, but I'm taken. Do appreciate that. This is insane. And the media is basically carrying the water for the Democrats on this one. Is it any wonder why people don't know any better? When I bring up the Climate Commitment Act to people who don't know, they're shocked. They had no clue. They don't pay attention. They didn't even know it was up for a recall, like the person who emailed our show last week and said, Ari, how can we get an initiative going to repeal the Climate Commitment Act? I'm like, dude, we literally did that already. Wanted to throw my computer through a window.
He voted no, now he's paying Mo.
Exactly. That's good. I got to tell Brian that one the next time I see him. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Speaking of government waste, Democrats have a $114 million boondoggle in California, which is a bridge for animals. Yep, right out of the West Wing. Tell you what it's all about when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. The West Wing was a very popular TV show in the late 90s, early 2000s about what goes on in the White House. What I find funny when I rewatch this show is that it was supposed to be a liberal president in the White House. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of liberalism running around that show. But when you watch clips like the one we're about to play for you, even they knew what the limit of insanity was. So let me set up this clip for you. And before I set it up, I'm just going to tell you the reason I'm playing this for you is because this happened in real life. And I couldn't believe it because this is one of those things you make fun of as part of the TV show. In the TV show, they have one day a year where people who don't normally get to talk to the White House, they invite in to talk to the White House, and they always get a bunch of crackpots. They call it Big Block of Cheese Day. So C.J. Craig, played by Allison Janney, who's the press secretary, gets to talk with a bunch of animal activists about Pluie the wolf.
The wolves' only roadway?
1,800 miles from Yellowstone to the Yukon Territory, complete with highway overpasses and no cattle grazing.
An 1,800-mile wolves-only roadway?
Pluie, you'll recall, had to...
Hang on. How are you going to teach wolves to follow road signs?
Our scientists are working on a plan.
Yeah, but in the meantime, Pluie's going to get drunk and wander off the wolves-only road and end up eating my cat.
We don't think that'll happen.
I don't think this is going to happen.
Perhaps we should...
First of all, ranchers don't want wolves returned to the West.
Ranchers are killers.
No, they're not. And anyone who says it should take it back. Ranchers face the following conditions: falling stock prices, rising taxes, prolonged drought, and a country that's eating less beef. Ranchers want to blame something, and because they're ranchers, they want to fight something. I'd rather it be a wolf than us, so unless Pluie registers to vote...
Pluie was shot and killed by a rancher in British Columbia last month.
Sorry to hear that.
I'm not sure you are.
Just out of curiosity, how much would it cost?
That's the beauty part. With contributions and corporate sponsorship, the cost to the taxpayer is only $900 million.
No, seriously, how much would it cost?
CJ, if we're gonna do this, why not do it right?
We're not gonna do it.
Okay. First of all, the reason the West Wing is unrealistic is because nowadays they go, you want your wolf bridge? No problem. We're going to give you your wolf bridge and some Somali daycares while we're at it. So what did we find here? And this is according to the New York Post. In 2022, California Governor Gavin Newsom broke ground on the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing, a project featuring an animal overpass atop 10 lanes of the 101 freeway in Southern California. They built the wolves-only highway. At the ceremony, Newsom boasted that the state had committed $54 million. He promised to complete the job with another $10 million. The fact that anybody said, let's spend $64 million on an animal bridge is insane. Officials projected a 2025 completion date for the overpass and estimated that the entire project, which includes the bridge and other developments, would cost $92 million, some of it coming from private philanthropists. Nearly 4 years after the ceremony, the bridge is past due, and the project some $21 million over budget. It was supposed to be the world's largest wildlife crossing, has become a jobs program for environmentalists with taxpayers on the hook for what the leader of this project said is for everything from monarch butterflies to mountain lions.
How does a butterfly use a bridge? Just asking.
Does the butterfly need the bridge? Does a butterfly walk? This woman, Beth Pratt, an environmental activist, she's a regional executive for the director of the National Wildlife Federation. In 2021, the group received a $25 million grant from the Wallace-Annenberg and Annenberg Foundation for the bridge that bears the late philanthropist's name. The money apparently was not enough. This past January, donning a hard hat, which said, #SaveLA Cougars, I think the women in Beverly Hills are perfectly fine, right? I don't think we need to save them at all. I think they're doing just fine.
I think Newsom's too old for him.
Oh, no.
I don't care how much mousse you put in that hair.
Well, wait a minute. He might be about to trade up again. Doesn't he always cheat with his campaign manager's wife? Isn't that what always happens? He's gearing up for a new campaign, right? Oh, sorry. Was that rude? Pratt announced a possibly $21 million overage. She effectively blamed President Trump, attributing the multi-million-dollar overrun to tariffs, inflation, and labor problems. So the problem isn't the bridge for the animals. What's the problem? The problem is, we just need a few more bucks to do it, and Trump's the problem. She said there's no boondoggle. Given the times we're living in, a $21 million overages is, quote, not that bad. And she claimed that the overages are consistent with many other construction projects. And I said, why are you doing projects that are a colossal waste of money? Within days of her announcement, the California Transportation Commission funneled another $18.8 million into the project, exceeding the governor's $10 million cap. The project's total price tag now reaches $114 million when it was supposed to cost $54. Double, more than double. On top of that, it includes $77 million in state funds. So the bridge for animals was $110 million.
Yeah, but think of how much they saved not having to put signs up. It's just kind of.
You want to bet they'll probably put those up later? When I was out at Cal Anderson Park yesterday giving the tour of the autonomous zone, I couldn't help but notice Katie Wilson's new dumb signs about ICE that are out there. Yeah, you see them everywhere you go. The virtue signaling is just off the charts. Now, they claim they need the bridge to ensure the safety and genetic diversity of the mountain lions in the Santa Monica Mountains, where only a dozen non-kitten cougars live at any given time. Does this sound like an effective use of taxpayer dollars to you? I hear that we have our own version of this stupid bridge here somewhere. Now I got some research to do tonight, talk about our own very dumb animal bridge. Crazy, crazy stuff. Circling back to things that are a lot closer to home, the fallout of Joe Kent's resignation continue around here. When we come back, Heidi St. John will be joining us to discuss her perspective on his resignation. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
all over the place.
The fallout from Joe Kent resigning from the administration continues, and now we're looking at the effects locally. I see that a lot of people are disappointed. Some people are not surprised. But now, joining us on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, host of the Heidi St. John podcast, the one and only Heidi St. John. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, my friends. Good to hear your voice.
It's been a long time. You have a unique perspective on this because you ran against Joe. Tell us what you think.
Well, I tried to warn Washington State about Joe Kent when I was running for office. I actually tried to warn President Trump. I had an hour-long meeting with the president. Way back in 2021, I told him Joe Kent does not have a history of supporting Republican measures, and he has not got a voting history of voting for conservatives. He was a registered Democrat from Portland, Oregon, when he decided to move to Washington State and masquerade as a conservative. And it really shows us we've got a huge problem with vetting people here in Washington State and around the country. If somebody wants to run for Congress and he wants a vote, or she wants to be our vote in Congress to represent Republican values and conservative ideas, they darn well better have a history of voting for conservative values and Republican ideas. Joe Kent did not have those things, and when he was outed as voting for Bernie Sanders and supporting Hillary Clinton, he spun up a story that he did it to support President Trump, which was garbage 100 different ways from Sunday. And most people saw it, but unfortunately, not enough people.
So I remember what his excuse was. His excuse was that he was participating in Operation Chaos, which was a Rush Limbaugh stunt where they wanted to get the worst candidates elected on the Democrat side of the aisle. And I'm not sure it's much better to say, hey, I'm going to go for what a talk radio host stunt is calling for. Not that I'm trying to tell you not to listen to me, but it sounds like that was the best you can come up with, as opposed to, well, I changed my ideals or I saw the flaw in it. Look, there's many of us that used to be Democrats that didn't have much to do with politics, or something happened where, they say that a liberal is a conservative who hasn't been mugged by reality yet. Could be that, but you're saying it was completely different like that from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I call BS. When I met Joe Kent for coffee in, I think it was late January of 2020, having not met him before, I have lived here most of my life, raised all 7 of my children here. My business is here. My family is here. I care very deeply about Washington State's 3rd Congressional District. And so when Joe Kent told me he wanted to run, I said, let's go have coffee. I want to hear about you. I want to hear your story. Of course, I heard his story about his wife and his service to our country, which I am thankful for. But I also asked him about his conservative background, and he frankly lied to me. He told me that he had been a conservative his entire life. I stood on a stage with him several times when he told audiences he was a lifelong Republican. That simply wasn't the case. And I'm trying to imagine, Ari, what would be happening right now if Republicans and conservatives had elected this man to represent them in Congress. What kind of damage would he be doing by bringing his Democrat socialist ideas as a Republican to the House of Representatives? In that regard, I think we dodged a bullet. I don't think he is a conservative or a Republican. I think there's a wolf in the hen house, and Republicans in this area did not want to see it. They were blinded by his sort of panache and his service to our country, which again is honorable. But because someone served in the United States military does not mean that they should be elected to Congress or, as we've just painfully learned, given the position of leadership for the National Center for Counterterrorism.
Heidi, I want to play a little clip for you, and I want your reaction to it. This is what the president said yesterday when this happened. Give a listen.
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security.
Okay, Heidi, why would he appoint him to one of the top security jobs in the country if he thought he was weak on security? That one kind of bothered me a little bit. Did it bother you?
Well, it bothers me, absolutely. But I can tell you, I actually think I know what the president was thinking. I think the president really did appreciate Joe Kent's service to our country. I think he was heartbroken over the loss of Joe Kent's wife, Shannon, to a suicide bomber in Syria at the hands of ISIS. And I think he was just trying to do him a favor. I really do. I think that Kent had, well, out on the campaign trail, Kent was constantly attacking Iran, saying that we should take the offensive in Iran. I heard him say it many times. I'm sure you did too. I think that President Trump bought the narrative. I tried to warn President Trump. I told the president I did not believe that Joe Kent was a conservative at the end of the day. And unfortunately, I think that my gut instinct on him and what I knew to be true has been proven right. I think the president gave Joe Kent a position because he appreciated his service in the military. And I don't think that Kent deserved that position or that he should have been given to him.
So, Heidi, switching gears, same topic, but a little different angle on it. Did it surprise you at all that his first stop after announcing he was out was Tucker Carlson?
It didn't surprise me. And in fact, when Joe Kent loves to be in the spotlight. When I first wrote about this, my phone started blowing up about 15 minutes after Joe made that post yesterday. And I posted about it. And I said, mark my words, Joe Kent's first stop is going to be Tucker Carlson. I knew that's exactly what he would do. It's interesting. This has been coming for a long time because many of you who live in the state of Washington will remember that Joe Kent was on Fox News and on Tucker Carlson over and over and over again. I tried to get at least equal airtime, if not just one other opinion of a person running for Congress in Washington State 3rd Congressional, and I was told by producers there that there was no way that I would ever be allowed on Tucker's show to talk about my run for Congress. So you tell me, Yari.
Yeah, that's a little bonkers crazy. And it kind of lines up with some other things that I know about from dealing with the people at Tucker Carlson's show. So continuing down that thread, when you post about it, I see the kind of comments I get online. Most of them are in agreement with us. They're sad, or they say we knew this from the beginning. There's a few others out there. Are you seeing some of those comments as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's appalling to me. I think people who are, maybe you supported Joe because you believed him and you thought he was going to be a stalwart conservative. I think there are a lot of people that are shaking their heads right now going, what the heck just happened? But what he did he can change his opinion. He can certainly do that. But what he did to President Trump in basically intimating that President Trump was a stooge and he was being controlled by a foreign country on his way out the door, he didn't say thank you for your support in both my failed runs for Congress. Thank you so much for giving me a job which I did not earn and do not deserve. No. Instead, he dishonored the president on his way out the door. And he actually, from what I understand, he's on Tucker Carlson right now doing the same exact thing. Dan Bongino took to his social media just about an hour ago to tell everybody, listen, Joe is his friend. But what Joe did is wrong. The way that Joe handled this is dishonorable. It is giving the Democrats their star witness for impeachment number 3, which is exactly what's going to happen if they win the House in the midterms, which I'm very afraid that that's what's going to happen. And Joe Kent's going to be their star witness. We need to open our eyes and pay attention. This anti-Israel sentiment, this hatred of Israel is what's driving a lot of the narrative. It's what's driving Tucker Carlson. It drives Candace Owens. And unfortunately, it's driving Joe Kent.
Imagine this for a second. If the Democrats do get back the House or the Senate or anything and they start the impeachments again, then what's going to happen is here's your lineup. Ready? You're going to have Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Joe Kent. That's your super friends that's going to be on this thing, don't you think?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And don't forget Carrie Prejean Bowler, who I also know, who, when she used to be a Protestant, she used to be a very reliable conservative. And when she converted to Catholicism in very same like fashion, and I'm not saying all Catholics share this point of view, but there is something happening that I think we need to start talking about in the open. Israel has been a friend of the United States for generations, usually our only friend in the Middle East. And the fact that we are turning on Israel in such large numbers in the so-called conservative movement should alarm people. We need to be telling the truth about the history of our country, our relationship with our friend and ally Israel, and we need to be talking about what the consequences are if we adopt this isolationist approach to foreign policy. It is dangerous and foolish to side with the Ayatollahs who teach 3-year-olds to shout death to America while we batten down the hatches and distance ourselves from Israel.
Are you telling me that giving $1.3 billion to the number one state sponsor of terror is a bad idea? I mean, that's crazy talk. That's crazy talk, Heidi.
Yeah, the whole thing, I mean, this is so disappointing because up until 5 minutes ago, we all agreed that terrorism was a bad idea. I'm old enough to remember 1979. I've been learning about the Ayatollahs and the terror regime in Iran since I was a kid. And we did agree, at least Republicans used to agree about this. But this to me is a very high stakes game. Like I said at the onset of the segment today, there are wolves in the henhouse. I do not believe that people like Joe Kent are actually conservatives or committed to conservative values. And again, I shudder to think about what Joe Kent would be doing right now if we had given him the high privilege and honor of having a vote to represent Republicans in the House of Representatives. Man, I shudder to think about it.
I want to know what you think out there in Radio Land. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Do you agree with Heidi that you saw this coming? Is it something that's made you kind of sad? Let us know. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Heidi, before we let you go, what's coming up on your podcast this week?
Hey, man, I just been interviewing Katie Faust. She is a Seattle superstar. If you haven't had her on your show, you need to. She was on my show yesterday, and I'm talking obviously about our relationship with Israel. Katie's got a campaign called the Greater Than Campaign, and she is interested in restoring the rights of children to their father and their mother. She is a superstar, again, coming out of Seattle, Katie Faust, the Greater Than Campaign, which I'm very, very happy to be partnering with along with my friends at the Daily Wire.
You should check out Katie Faust's book because there's a certain radio host who's got a chapter in there. Heidi St. John, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to Heidi's podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Really do appreciate it. We got a whole lot more to discuss, including your calls, your texts, and Zach and I are going to give you our review of Hail Mary. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It's been a while since we had the opportunity to go check out the movie premiere of a movie we wanted to go see. This one we've been looking forward to a while. for a while, excuse me. So me and Zach and Mike and Zach's brother, we all went to see Hail Mary last night starring Ryan Gosling. Zach is a space buff. He really wanted to go. I'm a sci-fi dork. I really want to go. And when I saw it was going to be in IMAX because I couldn't make the other screenings, I said, for sure, we have to go see this.
And my brother's cheap and likes free stuff.
So I'll go see that one too. So we roll in with a deep crew, as Mike would say, and we go to the movies. And this movie is basically starring Ryan Gosling and pretty much only Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling has to carry this entire movie. Before we get to his performance, visually, it is stunning. Stunning visually. I will caution you, and this is what I told the nice lady with the clipboard at the end, is that it puts you into space. So much so, I was space sick for the first part of the movie. Because in IMAX, when you're sitting 3 rows away from that sucker at the Pacific Science Center in that theater, I was getting a little dizzy at the beginning. It did such a good job with the space stuff.
You haven't felt like that since you put the lasers up there.
Excuse me, we're not supposed to talk about my excursions to space to install the Jewish space lasers, okay? Just because I have that switch on my desk where I could switch it into different modes. You're not supposed to talk about that, Zach. You haven't been working here long enough with me. You need to know, we don't talk about the space laser. We just joke about it so people think it's fake. Anyway, so the movie itself, you say, can Ryan Gosling really carry a movie? And I got to say, I thought he was great. His brand of stupid / oblivious, whatever that is that he does, was perfect for this. And I would actually go as so far as to say is he should be in Oscar contention for this movie because most of the movie he is working with something that isn't there or is a puppet.
He is so good. I didn't even think about that until you just brought it up. This is really just...
It really is. So basically the plot of the movie is Ryan Gosling has to save Earth, which is about to be destroyed. That's all I'm going to tell you. That is all I'm going to tell you about the plot. But it's realistic. And it's original. And even though you say, I've heard this plot 1,000 times, no, you haven't. It's really a special movie.
It's got a lot of the same people who worked on The Martian. It's actually based on a novel by the same person who wrote The Martian, the Matt Damon film. So if you like that, you're going to love this.
So, Zach, give me your review of this movie because you were into it the whole time. I saw you laughing. I saw you loving it.
I loved The Martian. It took itself a little seriously at times, but I always like I like Star Wars and all the sci-fi nonsense, but sometimes the nonsense is a little too much. It's like that doesn't happen in space. I'm too invested in space stuff that all the sort of sci-fi
You mean
things
the NASA. You're invested in real space
real
stuff.
space stuff that sometimes some of the sci-fi films can suck me out of it too quickly because it's too far-fetched. I mean, space lasers. Come on.
Yeah, far-fetched always sounds like a Yiddish word.
So anyway, this thing has aliens and it still feels real.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing you were talking about visuals, it's not visuals in the sense of like Avatar has great visuals.
No.
Or, great CGI. This is a real movie that they invested in with real props and real costumes and real makeup. In fact, we talk about a lot of movies being filmed in like a volume, some sort of this LED kind of room that you can just flip a switch and make it whatever backdrop or setting you want it to become. That actually plays a role in the movie as itself. They don't make you think you're somewhere else. It shows you'll find out. But it is a real movie with real production and real props and real things, and I liked that. It was refreshing as opposed to just CGI garbage.
And it made all the difference in the world because you felt like you were actually there. I still don't know if who he meets in space is real or CGI or a puppet. I have no idea. It's in the trailer. I'm not giving anything away. I don't know because they did such a good job with practical effects with it.
And the biggest difference I would say between The Martian and this is this one. So, I mean, The Martian was funny. It has funny moments. This one's hilarious.
Yeah.
Start to finish, it is really, really funny. And not groaners, real jokes.
I will say this also. I will caution you. If IMAX is not your thing and you get dizzy, don't see it in IMAX. Don't. Because I was getting dizzy and I love IMAX. I would say if you love IMAX, make sure you see it in IMAX on the biggest screen and sit as close as you can where you still see the whole screen. Don't sit so close that you're missing corners of the screen.
You have movies like Oppenheimer that say they're filmed for IMAX.
Yeah.
No. I beg to differ. This one is.
Yeah. and it's magnificent. It really is magnificent. It's fun. Definitely go see Hail Mary.
Best movie I've seen in years.
Yeah.
And not just as a space fan.
No.
Legitimately the best movie I've seen in such a long time.
It is a great movie.
This might be the first movie, well, short of F1. This might be the first movie I go and see twice.
Yeah, I don't know. See, for me, I don't know about that. This one, I kind of want to sit in my basement next time and watch it and look for the things I missed the first time.
Sure.
That's kind of how I want to do it. Anyway, check out Hail Mary, which is opening this weekend. So make sure you check out Hail Mary. Heading on over to the text line, by the way. It looks like a lot of you are agreeing about our take and Heidi's take about Joe Kent. You're either mad because you called this originally, or you're disappointed. This one here from the 206, so disappointed, Joe Kent. I really thought he was conservative. After hearing what he said, I'm so glad he lost both of his bids for office. Then what he did to President Trump, a snake in the grass, not to mention him running to Tucker Carlson to cry on his shoulder, sick, good riddance. Go back to the loony Dems where you belong. Wow. It also looks like he's under FBI investigation now for leaks. We're going to confirm that during the break and see if we can find that out for you. When we come back, final hour free-for-all, plus discuss the latest on what's going on in Iran and with Joe Kent and his resignation, the shakeup it's having in D.C. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free-for-all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of all the fun on over here, give us a call or a text on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, more on what's going on in Iran and how it's affecting you right here in Washington. But before we get to any of that, over on the text line, so a couple segments ago, we did that story about the animal bridge that California paid $114 million on, and it's still not done. A whole bunch of people actually reached out to say, we had the exact same thing here in Washington. I had no idea this thing even existed. Sean says, hey, Ari, did you know that Washington State has an elk bridge to cross I-90 up in the Snoqualmie Pass area? I heard they spent millions of dollars on that to get the elk across the road safely. Why'd the elk cross the road? To spend Democrats' money. Just come on at this point. This is me. Okay, tons of people have texted me about this stupid bridge from the 360. Ari, the first major wildlife overcrossing bridge on the I-90 near Snoqualmie Pass in Washington, completed around 2018, 2019, cost approximately $6.2 million, is part of a much larger $900 million 15-mile highway improvement project designed to reconnect habitats in the Cascades with over 24 crossing structures. You're telling me they literally built the highway? They literally built the highway for the animals that we're talking about. Unbelievable. Okay. Now I got to do a whole bunch of homework on the stupid animal bridge tonight because I didn't even know this thing existed. And I used to take my kids up and skiing at Snoqualmie all the time. Zach, were you aware of this thing?
I was aware of it.
You knew this thing existed.
Yeah.
I did that whole segment. You never said anything about it.
I thought this would be funny.
Oh, I just find out about it. Good call, by the way.
Well, I don't really. I just know. To be honest, no. It's just I know about it. I don't know much. I didn't know. I don't have background on this bridge to nowhere. I mean, It's there. It goes from dirt to dirt. I don't really know much else about it. I've never seen an animal across it, but I guess maybe they do.
Oh, so what you're saying, it's like the bike lanes, where I never actually see a cyclist in them except for the one that's painted on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you on this. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Ted in Gig Harbor. Ted, what's up, man?
Ari, this is about Joe Kent and the Iran thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the lessons of World War II, you go back to 1936. Hitler took a ragtag army across the Rhine River, across the bridges. He had horse-pulled cannons, okay? The French had 20 divisions. They could have stopped him any time. He was not, by the Versailles Treaty, allowed to have troops on the west side of the Rhine River. He did it. And the French did nothing. And the Brits said, well, it is Jerry's backyard. And 50 million people died. You do not wait until the threat is imminent to act.
Exactly. What does imminent mean? Does imminent mean that they're fueling the rockets to launch them at us? They're fueling the ballistic missiles? What does that exactly mean? And here's something else to think about. If we had dealt with this, if Ronald Reagan had dealt with this in 1981, let's just say, right? It would have cost a lot less money than what we're spending on it right now, even accounting for inflation, and a lot less blood and treasure because you would have been taking down a few revolutionaries. Now you're taking down a regime that has been the beneficiary of our taxpayer dollars for how long?
Yeah, exactly. And so, no, you do not wait until the threat is imminent. And it was a threat. Hey, anybody that's got a couple hundred kilograms of 60% enriched uranium is a real threat, okay? They're a couple months or a year away from a bomb. You know what I don't understand, Ari? Why the Iranians didn't a year or two ago say, folks, we have the bomb, okay? Why didn't they? It wouldn't matter that they didn't have it. You know, it would make everybody circumspect. It's
mutually assured destruction. Like, for example, North Korea. We don't know if their nukes work. Russia. We don't know if their nukes work. Given how lousy their army's been in the war against Ukraine, we don't even know if they work. But it's the threat of them even being there that we're worried about.
The Corbomite maneuver in Star Trek. Remember?
Yes, if you shoot us, we all die. Yes, exactly.
Spock says, we've been checkmated. And Kirk says, well, I'm playing poker.
Yes, exactly. And that's the move. Great reference. Great reference. Like the Vulcan death grip, which doesn't exist either. Good job, Ted. Love it. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. This one from the 360 from L. Darthbo. Darth contributed to and believed in Joe Kent when he first ran. I even met him, but sensed something was amiss. He did not look me in the eye, which, I had a similar experience. Let me let Darthbo finish. He looked over, gave me a feeling of being irrelevant. I should have paid closer attention to my instincts. Yeah, so I kind of felt the same way when I met him in person, but I said, this is the Republican who's running. I said to my wife last night, and she said, how you dealing with the Joe Kent thing? And I said, I ignored my gut again. I knew something was off at the beginning. I ignored it because he was the Republican in the race. And every time I do that, I find myself regretting it in the long term. It's something that's really frustrating for me. It really, really is. And apparently it's frustrating for the administration too, because now they have to clean up the mess that he made. Now, Joe Kent knew he was doing this on the eve of hearings on intelligence in Congress. So CIA Director John Ratcliffe got right to the meat of it. Was there a threat from Iran or not? Because Joe Kent says there wasn't. And just like our last caller, Ted, well, what do you define as imminent? Give a listen.
The head of the National Counterterrorism Center resigned, saying that Iran did not represent an imminent threat to the United States. Is there anything to indicate that Iran had ceased in its nuclear ambitions or in its desire to continue to build ballistic missiles capable of threatening American troops and allies in the Middle East?
Senator, no. In fact, the intelligence reflects the contrary.
So you disagree with Mr. Kent?
I do.
I would think any fair-minded assessment of the situation, even based on open sources, would reflect the danger the regime poses to the United States.
Exactly. So Iran posed an imminent threat. Are you supposed to wait for them to be fueling the rockets? What are you supposed to wait for? You wait for another 1,000 Americans to be killed by them? You wait for another October 7th? You wait for them launching more missiles at U.S. allies? What do you wait for? What's your sign? Where do you go with that? I think President Trump said it best on Monday.
Well, so far, nobody knows. If you look at his father, he used to give talks a lot, talking about death to America. He'd say death to America all the time. When they say death to America, you should believe them, because that's what they would have. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it. But they never had the chance. I never gave them the chance to use it. And other presidents should have done. I spoke to one of the former presidents who I actually like. I actually speak to some. I do like some people. It'd be shocking. And he said, I wish I did what you did. Could have done it. Other presidents, somebody should have done it. 47 years this went on. They call Iran the bully of the Middle East. And you could have never had the Abraham Accords. You could never have had peace in the Middle East now. You're going to have peace. You could never do it with the dark cloud of a nuclear Iran. But Iran is a shell of itself. It's no longer a bully. It's the one that gets bullied. It's a bully that got beat up. We beat the crap out of them. And they deserve that.
He's right. He's right, by the way. Now, reporters are trying to use this Joe Kent thing. They're trying to say, oh, see, look, people, we are so proud of him. Yeah, they're the same ones who said he was a proud boy. They're the same ones who called him an election denier. But now that his narrative slightly lines up with theirs, they're all in on him. They're also trying to divide J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. So the other day when they were in the White House announcing the new efforts to combat fraud in the U.S., one reporter was trying to divide Trump and J.D. over this very issue, and it didn't go the way the reporter expected it to.
First, Mr. Vice President, Democrats are already calling you the fraud czar. What's your reaction to that title? And then second,
good title.
Second, given
I like
your past skepticism of foreign adventurism, are you completely on board with the current war in Iran?
So I like fraud czar. It's certainly what we're going to do. And look, we have to do it. As the president said, this is a problem that has festered in this country for far too long, and far too few people have actually wanted to do anything about it. That's what makes this administration different, is that we actually tackle the problems the American people have been confronting. So I'm very happy about it. And look, I think that I know what you're trying to do, Phil. You're trying to drive a wedge between members of the administration, between me and the president. What the president said consistently, going back to 2015, and I agreed with him, is that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. We have taken this military action under the president's leadership. I think all of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, should pray for its success and pray for the safety of our troops. That's the approach that I've taken. Make it as successful as possible.
So there's no hesitation, given your past statements, with the current operation?
What do you mean there's no hesitation with my past statements?
Given your skepticism of foreign adventurism, you were a critic of the global war on terror previously.
Well, I think one big difference, Phil, is that we have a smart president, whereas in the past we've had dumb presidents. And I trust President Trump to get the job done, to do a good job for the American people, and to make sure that the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Absolutely.
Like being bogged down in the Middle East for decades with no endgame, no exit strategy in sight. I am concerned if we send boots on the ground, and I think a lot of Americans are. I think a lot of Americans draw the line on that. I'm concerned about gas prices going up because when gas prices go up, things get more expensive, and people say it's the economy, stupid, when it comes to elections. I'm concerned about Americans dying. I am concerned about all of this. However, you have a country that has been saying death to America and actually killed Americans over the last 47 years.
Here's why I will advocate for the devil, I guess, as this show tends to do.
Yep.
I think when people say they're maybe against the war, what they're really, or at least what I'm saying, is I'm against a long, drawn-out war.
Yeah.
And I'm skeptical and I'm hesitant that that will not happen.
So here's my first check of this, which I was going to bring up. Great segue into this. So one of my sons is coming home from Israel for Passover. And what has been my big thing? This is going to be in the bag because Passover's coming up, right? And I think the U.S. and Israel may have underestimated how much stuff there is in Iran that they have to take out. What happened overnight? No, this was not an AI video. This actually happened. When all these rockets, all these ballistic missiles are being fired at Israel from Iran, the shrapnel comes down. And people have been dying, not in huge numbers, but any life is a loss. Civilians. An elderly couple last night, there was a direct hit on one building. And this elderly 70-year-old couple couldn't get to the bomb shelter on time, and they died. Really horrible, really tragic. Well, this morning I woke up to the news that a piece of shrapnel that was shot out of the sky, so the missile was intercepted, fell on a plane at Ben Gurion Airport. And what happens is the plane went up in fire. Luckily, nobody was on the plane at the time, but still hit an airplane. Attacking an airport, that's an act of war. I think we're long past the act of war. But I said, oh, crud. I'm not sure my son's getting home for Passover. Because as soon as that happened, I just got an email during the show. El Al has the flights they have, and they're not doing any more to get anybody out of there. And El Al is the one that flies no matter what. So I wonder if there was a miscalculation on how much Iran had. And that gives me a moment of pause, where I think to myself, do we know everything we need to know? How long is this going to take? Because I thought we were going to be done in 3 weeks. I really, really did. And I thought we were going to be out of there.
Well, and I also question not necessarily the president's leadership, but I question the people he surrounds himself with. I think we all do, especially after the first term. And I mean, that's the number one concern. I mean, a couple months ago when we solved the problem with them having a nuclear weapon, here we are a couple months later trying to solve the problem of them having a nuclear weapon.
So that doesn't bother me, and let me tell you why. The target in June, and this is a very important distinction to make, the target in June was one specific place. They have other ones.
But the administration doesn't make that distinction.
I know the administration doesn't, because was President Trump saying, we obliterated it, there's nothing left? Well, you caved in the building. It doesn't mean there's nothing underneath it also. And I'm worried that at some point we're actually going to have to send people in to get the stuff. Because we had this problem when the Soviet Union collapsed. Who's in charge of all the nukes? One of the reasons Ukraine doesn't have nukes now is because Clinton said to them, all right, we got to secure your nukes. So if you get rid of them, we'll come defend you if you ever need it in the future. Now their nuclear deterrence is gone, and look what happened next. What actually does that look like? I think the president has been very clear on why we attacked Iran. I don't think he's been so clear on what happens next.
And that's the problem. I guess when I'm over here going, I'm against this general thing of war in Iran, it's because I don't know where it ends. And for 25 years of life, it's always been just one more thing in the Middle East. We're just going to take care of one more thing. It's always been, for my entire existence, one more thing. And it never is. And it never stops. And it continues. And it continues. And it continues. And we relatively solve very few problems.
And I think that's where a lot of people are at right now, where they say, we get it. We understand why we're doing this, right? But also, you have to look at it another way, too, which is, so we want to get out but not actually finish the job, but we said that with Afghanistan, and we said that with Iraq, and we said that in many other places. And then we finally do get out under disastrous conditions, and look what happens. This is the kind of issue we've been having for a very, very long time on all this. Now, if you ask President Trump about any of this, he'll say we're destroying them, but where does this really end? He was given the opportunity to answer the question the other day, and here's what he said.
Frankly, as somebody said, they could leave today, and it would take 10 years to rebuild the damage that's been done. But I think we have to make it a little bit more permanent because no other president has to go through this, and we shouldn't have any other president having to go through this kind of a thing. And if they didn't want to do it, if for some reason they didn't want to do it, we'd have the same problem. We don't ever want to have that problem again, not with lunatics. We can't have lunatics controlling nuclear weaponry. So I just want to thank everybody.
He's right. But what does that actually mean? Now, let me tell you a little shift in strategy I've noticed overnight to give you a little more confidence here. So if you look at the maps they've been releasing of everything that they've been bombing, what you see is they're starting to destroy the police stations. Why are they going after the police stations? Because they're not the police like we have here in Seattle. The police that we have, the police that they have are the religious police, but they're also the ones for the Ayatollah that oppress people. They're the ones that were going out and killing the protesters in the streets. That's the kind of police they're talking about. They're bombing those police stations because the Iranian people have not risen up yet. There's an opportunity for the Iranian people to rise up this weekend. There's the Fire Festival coming up, which is on Friday. It'd be interesting if that's when they choose to rise up, but what they're worried about right now is they don't have guns. They don't have guns, and they're rising up against the remnants of a regime that has all the guns, that has all the weapons. Do I need to make the case for the Second Amendment here right now? No, of course not. You need the people to rise up because we suck at nation building. And we don't want to do nation building, which is why this has been airstrikes and not boots on the ground. Going over the text line, this one here says from the 360, I trusted in Joe Kent, and now he's showing his true colors. I'm wondering if he gave up USA info to others. Well, the new reports are he may have been leaking to Tucker Carlson, who's not exactly pro-American these days. This one here from Bebin. Hi, Ari. Not sure where I heard Joe Kent is married to someone who supports Iran. Is this true? From KVI listener in the 425. Let me clarify this. Joe Kent's new wife works for Max Blumenthal. Max Blumenthal is a far-left progressive propagandist, and I don't use that term easily because I don't like when people insult what I do for journalism. He works for Russian propaganda outlets like RT, which is literally Russian propaganda. That's who his wife is. So what a lot of people have been talking about is, did she play a role in this? Was Joe Kent leaking stuff to them? We don't have any evidence of that. All we have is who his wife is and who she works for. These are theories we have right now, so I hope that clarified that. This one here, El Darthbo's back again. Ari, me again. Iran has been an imminent threat for over 40 years. What does death to America mean? Exactly right. This is what people need to realize, is that they are an imminent threat. They have been an imminent threat. They have done everything possible. They funded the insurgency against our troops in Iraq. They made Iraq worse. Why we went to Iraq instead of Iran, we could have that discussion for the rest of time. But what we need to do right now is know exactly what the plan is, and I think it would actually benefit the administration to say we really want the people to rise up. Or what we want to happen. What's the end game here? The problem is, as soon as you announce an end game like Joe Biden did, what do the bad guys do? Oh, here's their end game. So either we're going to stop it from happening or we're going to wait them out, and then we're going to start all over again like the Taliban did. Because the Taliban just sat there and said, well, if Joe Biden says they're getting out in August, we could just wait till August. That's the other problem you have. You can't give out all the military plans. Like I mentioned all the time, that old Saturday Night Live skit with Kevin Nealon. So, Zach, I don't know if I told you this one. Kevin Nealon, when he was on Saturday Night Live, he was playing the press secretary. And they're asking him all these questions about invading Iraq. And they said, so what are you going in with? Oh, we're going in with F-15s, or we're taking 100,000 troops, and we're coming in from the north, and we're going to attack this, and we're going to attack that. Well, what time's lunch? Sorry, that's classified. You can't give out your entire battle plan while you're doing this. This one here from the 360, I think it's pretty clear that Joe Kent does not wear the pants in his family. Ooh, burn. That's one here. I mean, yes, this is a debate that's going to be going on for a while, but the question is it dividing MAGA? Is it dividing Republicans right now? Here's what CNN says.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you look at the polling data and there are numbers that just jump off the screen at you, and this is one of those. Because just take a look here. MAGA GOP view of Trump. Approve 100%. 100%. If you are a member of MAGA in the GOP, you approve of Donald John Trump. 0% say that they disapprove. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know you can't go higher than 100%. He is the 1972 Miami Dolphins. Now, there are some Republicans who disapprove of Donald John Trump, but they are not members of the Make America Great Again movement. The bottom line is this: if you are a member of MAGA, you approve of Donald Trump.
It's interesting, though, because there have been a couple prominent people who have sort of come out online, and they're very mad about this war with Iran because he promised no new wars. Is there any sign that people might be leaving MAGA relative to 2024?
Yeah, okay. So, you know, I've said it before, and, you know, the theme of this segment is Tucker Carlson be darned. And when we look at the numbers, I mean, I've heard some people say, oh, you know what, when you look at those MAGA numbers, it doesn't account for those who might have left MAGA. But take a look here. Americans who identify as MAGA, in November of 2024, it was 28% of Americans. Now it's basically the same. If anything, it's slightly higher at 30%. The bottom line is this: the MAGA base within the GOP is not shrinking. It's the same size. If anything, it is slightly larger than it was back in 2024 when, of course, Donald Trump won a second term. So that 100% that Donald Trump has approval among MAGA GOP, that is not an artifact of MAGA shrinking. It's just an indication of how strong Donald Trump's grip is on that MAGA base.
That's a loss for the podcast first movement. So when you see all the clips tomorrow of Joe Kent on Tucker Carlson, or this weekend when he's with Candace Owens, we check with our audience all the time. And it seems like everybody's in lockstep on this stuff. They don't like what Joe Kent did. Either they saw it coming or they're disappointed in him. They don't like the Tucker Carlson stuff. They don't like the Candace Owens stuff. They don't like the Megyn Kelly stuff. They don't like any of this garbage because they know it's dividing the party. And if you keep dividing the party, we keep losing elections. So now Tucker Carlson, as opposed to having candidates on who could be winning and actually pushing forward a conservative message and make sure we keep a Republican majority, he's having on Joe Kent to talk about how mad he is at Donald Trump. That doesn't help you win elections. That is just the airing of grievances. If I need that, I will call George Costanza's father. Up next, my friends, the Democrats continue to air their grievances over dealing with illegal immigrants, but there's one clear-headed Democrat, and that's John Fetterman. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Today we are giving away two tickets to see Aaron Lewis and the Stateliners at Muckleshoot Event Center on March 24th. All you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you. Not your name, not your phone number. We get your phone number. We have caller ID. If you win, we will tell you and get all your information. Today's word is stain, not stained, just stain itself. Text the word stain, STAIN, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for your chance to win two tickets to see Aaron Lewis and the Stateliners at the Muckleshoot Event Center on March 24th. Saw this post from ICE Seattle. This is right here in our own backyard. Child rapist detained. ICE Seattle took custody of Miguel Angel Valenzuela Gonzalez, a criminal alien from Mexico, after he was released from federal prison. He was recently convicted for illegal reentry and previously served jail time for first-degree rape of a child in Washington. This is who Democrats want to have a sanctuary jurisdiction for. If you go to the ICE Seattle X account or the ICE Seattle Facebook account, it is filled with this stuff. Filled with it. You know how much worse this can get? If you have kids in the car, you got to earmuff it for this one. Just giving you the warning. I decided to do this later in the show when most people have already done drop-off. When I get the notification that my daughter got home from school, I'm like, okay, it's time. We can be a little saucier now because the kids are home. This
kind
one.
of the beaded curtain of the show.
Yeah.
Did I make a video store reference correctly?
Yes, you actually did,
Yes.
Zach. Well done. Zach's like, what's a video store? Yes, very well done, Zach.
Was that a Blockbuster?
Well, you can usually tell by the signage. Yes, that was a Blockbuster, but Blockbuster didn't have the beaded section. Blockbuster just had this other area, if I recall. I don't know. I didn't spend much time over there. So, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. ICE investigation leads to guilty plea in, you got that kid earmuffed, right? Everybody got the kid earmuffed? Monkey sexual torture case. Yes, this is for real. Francisco Javier Ravello, a U.S. citizen from Coral Gables, Florida, pleaded guilty March 2nd to distributing videos showing adult and baby monkeys being tortured that way and mutilated following an ICE investigation. Ravello created and administered online chat groups dedicated to torturing monkeys. He distributed more than 40 of these obscene videos. This is a U.S. citizen, but ICE thought for sure it's somebody from another country, so they did the investigation, and they got this guy. I bet you the headline tomorrow, you know what it's going to be? Here we go. Where did this happen? This is in Coral Gables, Florida. Coral Gables man detained by ICE, but he's a U.S. citizen. That's what it'll be. It won't mention that this guy was mutilating monkeys. It'll just be he's a U.S. citizen detained by ICE. You know what's crazy to me? There are still so many Democrats who won't say we have to get these guys out of the country. Representative Brandon Gill was actually having some people testify in front of him today. Representative Gill's one of us, but listen to the answers he got from the guy who was testifying today on Capitol Hill.
Do you believe that American tax dollars should be used to rehabilitate criminal and illegal aliens within our own borders?
I believe it's in our own interest to rehabilitate anybody who commits a crime.
Including criminal and illegal aliens who never should have been here.
If it happens within our borders, it's to the benefit of all of us to rehabilitate them. Rehabilitation of those who are convicted of criminals is not for their own benefit. It's for the benefit of society.
How many criminal and illegal aliens should we rehabilitate?
Again, anyone who commits a crime and is convicted of a crime should be rehabilitated
there's no
for the
limit. benefit
of the entire
So an illegal alien
society.
comes into our country, murders or rapes somebody, we ought to rehabilitate them, is your view. And there's no limit to the number of illegal alien criminals we should rehabilitate. Is that your testimony?
I wasn't asked to testify about that.
Okay. So this guy thinks if it happened within our borders, we should rehabilitate that person. First of all, you can't rehabilitate everybody. When I was working as a youth director, I had one of my bosses said to me at one point when I was dealing with a particularly troubled kid, he said, Ari, you're not a social worker. You can't save everybody. You just can't. And that's completely true, especially when it comes to law enforcement. You can't fix everybody. Why are we spending U.S. taxpayer dollars on this when they came here illegally? Why don't we just send them back to Venezuela or whatever country it was and let it be their problem? They ship their problems over to us. At least there's one clear-headed Democrat who you can still listen to. One clear-headed Democrat. And we all know who that's going to be, which is John Fetterman. Because the left loves talking about people killed by ICE or Border Patrol. They never talk about the people killed by illegal aliens.
One name that often doesn't come from my side is Laken Riley. I agree for Renee Good, and I agree for Alex Petty, but I also deeply, deeply agree for Laken Riley and their family. And now all three were failures of our government there in that circumstances. And as I was proud to be the co-sponsor of the Laken Riley bill, because we have to address that. Two things must be true here. We need to have a secure border, and we have to round up and deport every single criminal in our nation. I can't imagine why that's critical or controversial for anybody.
Wow, what a nuanced perspective. Yes, we can have a discussion about who came here and is not a criminal, but not until we get all the criminals out. What a nuanced perspective. It's too bad nobody's willing to have that conversation in D.C., because then we might actually solve something. The good news is it looks like the progressive agenda isn't doing as well as the media will have you believe. Up next, every single progressive candidate who is running for office in Illinois lost last night, including one who is currently under federal indictment for attacking ICE agents. Tell you all about it up next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Mm-hmm. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Even if you don't listen to podcasts, give us those subscriber clicks, my friends. Also, download the KVI app. You can always listen to us at kvi.com. Looks like we got some late-breaking news for you in the show right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
This has now been confirmed that Joe Kent is under FBI investigation. We have little more than that. That is all we actually have. But it appears that Joe Kent is under FBI investigation. The only thing we can assume for that is that it's for allegedly leaking classified information. Now, the reports we were getting yesterday that were unconfirmed at the time was that Joe Kent has not been part of any classified briefings regarding the Iran war for a long time, or Iran at all, for a long time. He was out of the loop, completely out of the loop. In fact, here's the press secretary talking about Joe Kent earlier today.
Joe Kent, who works for Tulsi Gabbard over at the DNI, a political appointee, said he could no longer stay in his job. He was resigning over the Iran war. So he had objections. When is the last time he saw President Trump?
It's been a while. It's been a while since the president has seen him here at the White House. It's been a while since he's been involved in the process of the presidential daily briefs, and he's been actually present for the president's intelligence briefings. This was an individual who was not involved in any of the discussions pre-operation and throughout this operation. I think the president views it as deeply unfortunate that this individual, who the president gave the privilege of working for the administration, put out this resignation on government letterhead with many falsehoods throughout, essentially accusing the president of being manipulated by foreign governments. That's laughable and it's insulting. President Trump has been remarkably consistent on this issue of Iran for many, many years. Long before he ever entered politics, he has always said Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon. So anyone who works here should be well aware of the president's intentions and his peace through strength agenda and his willingness to use the United States military to achieve peace if and when necessary, as we have seen throughout Operation Epic Fury.
That's exactly right. Now, what did Tulsi Gabbard say earlier today? Because she was Joe Kent's boss. He was working under her. She was asked, is Iran a direct threat to the U.S. earlier today on Capitol Hill?
The United States continues to face a complex and evolving threat landscape with a geographically diverse set of Islamist terrorist actors seeking to propagate their ideology globally and harm Americans, even as al-Qaeda and ISIS remain weaker today than they were at their respective peaks. The spread of Islamist ideology, in some cases led by individuals and organizations associated with the Muslim Brotherhood, poses a fundamental threat to freedom and the foundational principles that underpin Western civilization. Islamist groups and individuals use this ideology for recruiting and financial support for terrorist groups and individuals around the world, and to advance their political objectives of establishing an Islamist caliphate which governs based on Sharia. There are increasing examples of this in various European countries, and President Trump's designation of certain Muslim Brotherhood chapters as foreign terrorist organizations is a mechanism to secure Americans against this threat. In response to setbacks to their capabilities of conducting large-scale complex attacks, Islamist terrorist groups have shifted toward focusing on executing information operations to spread propaganda and inspire or enable individuals located in or with access to the West. U.S. counterterrorism efforts, primarily in Iraq, Somalia, Yemen, and Syria in 2025, were instrumental in removing key terrorist leaders and operatives, degrading the ability of al-Qaeda and ISIS to quickly reconstitute its leadership and plan large-scale attacks against the homeland and U.S. interests abroad. Strict U.S. border enforcement measures and increased deportations of individuals with suspected links to Islamist terrorists have reduced access to the homeland and removed some potential sources of future terrorist attacks.
So you're saying enforcing the border is a good idea? Keeping out terrorists that want to come to this country and just having open borders is a bad idea? Well, did you know that somebody who was running for office has been federally indicted for attacking border agents? Last night was the primary in Illinois. In Illinois, most of these places, it was between somebody who's moderate and a far left lunatic. Well, guess what? For everybody who's doom and gloom saying we're going to lose this election, and I don't say, oh, we're going to win the election because of this. Everybody's trying to look into a foggy crystal ball, like in Wizard of Oz, and you see a little monkey wing or you see a little broom, and you go, I know what's going to happen. I am saying this right now. I don't know what's going to happen, and don't believe polls. If we believe polls, Donald Trump never would have won in 2016. If we believe polls, George Bush would have lost to John Kerry. If we believe polls, we'd be wrong all the time. But this is an interesting thing that happened. In Illinois, every single far-left Democrat who is running for office lost. Now, all of these seats are safely Democrat. It doesn't mean they're going to Republicans, but they went to the moderate Republicans. The most noticeable one was far-left activist Kat Abou-Gazala. Abou-Gazala. Ooh, I did it. Abou-Gazala. That's how you pronounce it. She was running for Congress, failed, lost really, really badly. She worked for Media Matters. Media Matters is the organization that decided who was real news and who was fake news. And hey, they helped give scores to conservative outlets. Nope, you're fake news, you're fake news, you're fake news.
I was pretty sure this is how you said her name.
Boogity, boogity, boogity! Let's go racing, boys!
That is not how I said her name.
That's how I said her name.
That's how you said her name. That's Abu. Not going to be in Congress. That's what I know.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. That's good. I like that. So what happens? She lost, and she lost badly. She came in third. She didn't even come in second. She came in third. She is out. She is gone. She is done. And she's under federal indictment for attacking ICE agents at an ICE facility in Chicago. So she's not going to be in Congress, and she may not even be in the regular population soon enough, is what we might find out. So when she lost, true to her ideals to the end, she was crying, and she was very, very sad. But then in a moment of
Kind of
triumph,
Drake May after the Super Bowl.
There you go. Exactly right. But here's what she said as her inspiring goodbye speech.
I'm sorry that this sucks, but f*** Trump, f*** ICE, free Palestine, and I love you all.
Woo! Woo! Words of inspiration. That's how committed they are to the bit.
Bingo.
Yeah. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face heading into the evening commute. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And I get fascinated with technology stories, especially when I'm worried about that the technology might kill us one day. I don't know if it's good news, but it's cool news, at least for now. Fox News had this report of swarms of wall-climbing robots will be crawling across U.S. Navy warships in an effort to slash repair delays and boost fleet readiness as China continues expanding its naval power. Under the 5-year contract, Gecko, not the thing from the car commercials, will begin working on 18 ships in the U.S. Pacific Fleet, with the initial award valued at up to $54 million. The contract vehicle is structured to allow other military services to access the technology as well. Only about 60% of U.S. Navy ships are operational at any given time because of maintenance backlogs, sideline a significant share of the fleet. Meanwhile, China now fields roughly 370 warships to 390 warships and submarines, compared with about 300 in the U.S. Navy, and its state-backed shipbuilding industry, slave labor, can produce vessels at a dramatically faster pace. Some independent analysis estimate China's shipbuilding capacity exceeds America's by more than 200 times when measured by tonnage output. Against that backdrop, the Navy is turning to artificial intelligence and robotics, not for weapons, but for repairs. The AI-powered machines, developed by Gecko Robotics out of Pittsburgh, scale hulls, flight decks, and other hard-to-reach steel surfaces, scanning for corrosion, metal fatigue, and weld defects. Instead of relying on sailors or shipyard workers suspended on ropes or scaffolding to inspect ships point by point, the robots collect millions of data points and feed them into a digital platform designed to flag structural integrity problems early. Quote, where value hasn't improved, that's where opportunity lives. Cracking the cost equation is just as important as cracking the physics equation, says Justin Finelli, the Chief Technology Officer for the Department of the Navy. He says we're now seeing solutions that make innovation, adoption easier, and in doing so save time, money, and risk. If you look at these suckers, I gotta say, they look like bombs on the hull. That's what they look like. They do not look like the little robots working on the ships in the Star Wars prequels. The inspections will focus on destroyers, amphibious warships, and combat ship vessels that form a core part of the U.S. naval operations in the Pacific. The Chief of Naval Operations has set a goal of reaching 80% fleet readiness by 2027, a benchmark Navy leaders say is critical as competition with China intensifies. Gecko says its robotic systems can identify structural issues far faster than traditional manual inspections, helping planners reduce maintenance delays and return ships to the sea more quickly. Ships often sit in dry dock for months as unexpected structural issues are discovered after work has already begun, reducing the number of vessels available for deployment, while Navy leaders push to raise readiness toward 80% in the coming years. The other problem is they have a shortage of trained shipyard personnel. Because we've spent so many years telling kids, go to college, go to college, go to college, and then they don't end up using their degrees, we haven't been sending a lot of them to trade school. We haven't been sending a lot of them to the military. U.S. shipbuilders have struggled to recruit and retain enough skilled welders, electricians, and technicians to keep pace with demand, contributing to both construction delays and maintenance backlogs. Industry reports show many new hires leave within their first year, slowing workforce growth even as shipbuilding needs rise. Automation and AI are increasingly viewed as part of the solution and also reduce the amount of dangerous, labor-intensive inspection work required. So here's what I'm worried about. What if those robots decide they don't like us anymore one day, and they're working on our military ships, and then they decide, I'm not going to tell them about this structural problem. I'm just going to let it lie. That'll be fine. Is this how Skynet finally takes over? I mean, the robots are cool and all, but I'm a little concerned how the robots are going to get us one day. Do you think your computer's going to attack you if you're using like ChatGPT? Oh, Zach's going to be the first one to go then.
Oh, yeah.
That's all your songs you make on
Not
those
a
things.
completely different take. I thought, is the first tech to get a hold of one of these, treat it like the robotic stud finder that it is, and run it up his back and go, time to check the integrity of the poop deck.
You need a stud finder? It's right here.
Exactly. Beep, beep, beep. Must be working.
Oh, God, every dad has made that joke for the all of time.
My wife says, when are you going to not do that? I said, when it stops being funny. That day has yet to arrive.
Zach, I've been married for 22 years. I still make that joke to this day. In fact, now it's so bad that my kids go, Dad. In fact, it's worse than that. My kids now predict the joke. They go, Dad, don't say it. I go, what do you mean? I got to make sure it's working. And we keep going with that.
She sees me open the drawer to grab this, and she goes, no, please don't. We don't need. Yep. Yes, we do.
I think this is why my wife has started hanging up art in the house. So she doesn't have to ask me to do it, so I won't tell the joke.
That's why we're using a lot of command strips.
This one here from the Today Show. When Brittany Smith saw a delivery worker walk up to her porch in eastern Tennessee, she was speechless. She said, I see this little old man walking up the steps with my Starbucks bag, and my heart just sank. Her husband is a quadriplegic and chose DoorDash's leave at the door option, so he never interacted with the man. She said, I called my husband and I said, I don't know what kind of tip you left this man, but it better have been a good one. And he said, why? And she sent the downloaded video to him and saw this old man delivering their food. She felt she had to do something. She posted her camera footage on Facebook and asked for help identifying this precious little old man. That video racked up millions of views, and Smith quickly learned that the identity of her 78-year-old driver was Richard Pulley, who had been retired until his finances changed for him and his wife of 56 years. They said his wife lost her job, and they were having trouble covering their bills. So what did he do? He went to working for DoorDash. He started driving for DoorDash full-time, completing nearly 6,000 deliveries. So what happened? The woman who ordered the food started a GoFundMe to raise money for this guy's retirement so he doesn't have to keep doing it anymore. They raised close to $1 million from 32,000 donors to help this guy out, which was a pretty nice thing. DoorDash itself added $20,000 to help out this guy, which is a really sweet story.
And then said, get back to work.
They don't mess around at all, those DoorDash people.
That pizza's hot, it's ready, but it's not where it needs to be.
Dude, your notifications are pinging. You got to go get some stuff. Go grab that stuff right now. Ping, ping, ping. It's all nice that you're getting all these donations. Those ain't donations. Those are orders we need done, man.
That's the one thing I will say. I do not Uber Eats. I do not DoorDash. I do none of it.
I don't like any of that. I don't like when my wife does the grocery stuff either. I don't like any of that. I like driving. I like going out and getting the stuff. That's just me. Well, that means it's about time for us to drive home today. But fear not, my friends. We will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and more fantabulous prizes. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 5.